Hey guys, before we dive into this video, I'd just like to let you know, in case you missed it, that I've got a breakdown video on Atomfall. I really enjoyed my time with that game and I wanted to make something giving you the details about it, despite the algorithm not really doing its thing with these kinds of videos. So if you're interested, check it out, share it with a friend if you know somebody who's on the fence about it, especially these days with all these price increases and people increasingly wanting to support things that are more deserving. And speaking of more deserving, this video we're going to be talking about Tainted Grail and trying to figure out what the hell is going on here, because this game just doesn't make any sense. Playing the full thing like I did with Atomfall and then making a video at the end encompassing everything is just not viable. I want to recommend good games while the iron is still hot. It's actually part of the reason why the Atomfall video took me a few days to make. I kinda just got hooked playing Tainted Grail in my free time, and for the life of me I can't figure out why. Because you look at this game and it just looks wrong, you know what I mean? The visuals are nothing to write home about, some areas look really undercooked and basic, especially these days. Some look amazing, don't get me wrong, I mean, not gonna lie, that view from atop the Keeper's stronghold in the Horns of the South was truly something else, and there's many beautiful scenic vistas with a lovely playful mix of colors and weather effects, but in some areas like the village or the sunken village, or random forest, random ruins, random caves, Ron's Inn, the docks, the shore, they have a very empty and vapid look to them, you know? Just a few broken pieces of wood, some rocks, some sand, and not much detail to go around. And oh my god, the NPCs, Jesus, even without counting the ones that just look downright ugly, in general these NPCs just look so old, you know what I mean? Like the textures for their faces, the way that their arms look, it often looks like I'm playing a game that is like 10 years old at least. The HUD and the UI in the menus and stuff, all of it looks quite dated as well, not very personalized. Things start off very clunkily, you have very clear roughness in the movements. And yet, I can't put it down. I'm having a blast going around questing, exploring the world, getting my ass handed to me time and time again, cause some of the enemies are straight up assholes. Some of them are nuts, like I wandered into this cave this one time, in a lake tainted red with blood. The entrance was under the surface, and then inside I find this weird looking guy? I don't even know what the fuck that was. Very cool character design though, for sure. They did a fantastic job, not just on the characters, but the ruins that you go to, all of the stuff that pertains to the Arthurian legend looks uniquely disgusting in the best way possible that I can put it. Like, it naturally elicits this kind of response, it's what it's supposed to do. But anyway, I talked to this guy, and he just gives me some kind of a speech before going full aggro and taking me out. I couldn't even back out of it. And before that I had wandered into this mine. Just an innocent mine. I fight off a couple of those little goblin things, so I think to myself, okay, so far so good, and then I progress a little bit further into the mine, and some big disgusting mole rat monster or some shit just pops out of the ground, straight up dunks on me. I didn't stand a chance, I tried to fight over and over again, it was pointless. Then on my way to the castle, I stopped by this tiny ruin which was on the way. There's a guy sitting there just chilling and he's like, oh, blah 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 blah, I can offer you an honorable death. It's the best you can get in this land. Who the fuck do you think? I mean, what is this? Why wouldn't I do this in Tainted Grail? It's not even one of those games where you play as some schmuck, like in Dark Souls or Oblivion or Lords of the Fallen. You play as just some guy. In Tainted Grail, you are important. You are blessed with a fraction of the power of King Arthur. But that didn't mean shit, the dude just took me out with one swing of his sword. And since the game is so unconventional and rough around the edges, I actually thought to myself, okay, alright, okay, clearly there's been some kind of mistake here, maybe I bugged out, it's okay, let's just reload the save and let's try again. And this time he didn't even swing at me, he just bashed me with his shield and I fucking died. So clearly this is not that kind of game. But regardless of that, I'm having so much fun, and ever since then I got into some extra fights, climbed up a few XP levels, unlocked a few new weapons, got some better armor, unlocked a few new skills, and it just feels great. Being 100% serious this right now, it really does feel amazing to have your character getting stronger and being able to venture out and be more effective against enemies. You really do feel the progression in this game, and I'm also getting a great hang of the combat. It's still rough around the edges because honestly, again, no comedic effect, the game does genuinely have a sloppy foundation. Like, this is truly something that you definitely see that has amateur roots in it. You feel the indiness of this project, but it does so many other things well, and some things even better than its AAA competitors. And it's so fairly priced that these blemishes are just things that are very easy to look past. And I'm deeply engrossed by the lore too, like the initial hook of the story so far seems very interesting, but I actually haven't even progressed that much because I just lose hours and hours and hours looking around, exploring and doing loads of side quests for random characters, and overall just trying to get stronger. But the lore has been so immensely rich. Before you even leave the tutorial area, you can already get more depth out of this world than many AAA games manage to fit into entire open world areas of their games. You start out in this dungeon area, some guy saves you, opens your cell door, and you're free to roam. You can meet a bunch of characters tucked away in various corners of this prison, most of which I know I will definitely encounter later in the game because it was obviously set up that way, but they were hidden away in completely optional corners for you to find. They're totally missable. Hell, there's even a secret boss fight in there, complete with a little cutscene and everything. And it was totally optional and off the beaten path. You have to take a leap of faith and jump down some hole. If you beat the guy, you get yourself some nice fresh gear, some decent chest armor, and a great helmet that'll last you for a good few hours before you find something better. There were so many corners to look into and loot in that prison, and so much lore, so much documentation, so many letters, so many books, so many beautifully written notes left by in-game characters detailing how patients were doing or detailing the results of their experiments on the patients. So much useless shit that you just don't need. Like, these were entire cells locked off that you could open with lockpicks and rummage through, and some of them had these letters to loved ones, some of them had documentation as to the state of the patient or the treatments that they were undergoing or the effects of some experiments. Shit like this is totally useless. Most players are 100% going to walk right past it, and yet, just by the fact that it is there, you can see that these are developers that take this kind of thing to the next level, because they know that there's going to be RPG gamers out there playing this game and hoping for precisely this kind of depth, and I am so glad to see that it's actually here. And so far it's been present everywhere else too. I've been to this village and there's a bunch of quests in there if you go around and actually speak to people. Same thing in the Keeper's Stronghold. I was surprised by how many of the Keepers were named NPCs with unique dialogues to share with us and side quests to put us up to. Some cooler than others, of course, like some are intriguing, others were silly, like getting a coat to some guy who was freezing his balls off patrolling a wall. Some other dude was spazzing out over seagulls. He was saying that the seagulls are intelligent and they have malicious intent because they keep shitting on him, landing every hit, so he wants you to kill some, but honestly, I haven't really even tried yet. I don't have nearly as many arrows as I need to be comfortable wasting them on seagulls. But anyway, it's been nice to see so much detail in the locations that I've been to, actually unique side quests with a narrative to tell, some with some humor thrown in there to contrast against the world's very dark nature. And my favorite aspect of it is seeing quests be given to us organically. No menus, no map markers, no exclamation points over their heads or exclamation points on a compass, none of that. It's all just up to you. You explore, you look around, you talk to people, you hear their stories, hear their pleas and offer help, or you don't. And of course the detail in the lore has been terrific. I don't exactly know how much of this is original Arthurian myths and legends and how much of it was actually written by these people, by the developers, like original storytelling, but one way or another, I am 100% in. And man, is it dark. Like, this game does not care about optics or about downplaying its darkness and brutal nature in order to try and reach a wider audience in terms of age ratings. It prides itself in being a hardcore RPG, both in the gameplay aspect and the setting, and I wish these developers nothing but success, because the few hours that I've spent with this first-person RPG have taken a fat shit on the time that I spent spent with Avowed, which costed almost twice as much as this damn game. In fact, Avowed studio Obsidian Entertainment is about to drop The Outer Worlds 2 at $80. They're the first morons to do it besides the idiots at Nintendo. We knew Xbox was going to do this, of course, and some people went, oh, this is only the real big projects. RPGs like Avowed don't count. Well, here we go. Surprise, surprise. That was a load of copium. Of course it was. It's $80 for their first party games because of course it is. Why wouldn't they be? Why would Xbox be like, no, this game is less worth than this game? They're not gonna do that. They're gonna push everything at the top price. But anyway, we'll explore this in a future video. The point is that we are at a point where you can buy a great game like Tainted Grail or Expedition 33 twice, or in this case you can buy one of each, for around the same price that you would spend on one miserable AAA or quadruple A, depends on the dose of copium that the publisher is inhaling, game that can barely compete with the AA or indie market. Ah, but Des, I hear some of you say, especially on Twitter, they are small studios, indie games. Xbox is massive. All of these companies, they're huge. They have to charge more. How the fuck is that my problem? If Sandfall Games can make a AAA quality game with like 30 developers and a fraction of the budget that these people spend, then why the fuck can't these big companies do it as well? I mean, if they don't do it because they don't want to, or they don't do it because they suck. I'm not here to pay more money for a company that sucks. If the developers that made Tainted Grail were to make a sequel that is way better than this, it's like fully polished, fully smooth, all of the good stuff that you would expect from a AAA title, much like what Sandfall Games delivered, and they wanted to charge us more money in order to justify the studio expansion that they went through in order to be able to achieve that, that's one thing. But corporatization? And then sucking at making video games and selling them at $80? What, because their companies are bloated to shit and they can't manage their own selves? No, I'm not gonna fucking pay for that. It's not my problem. The same thing happens with Atomfall. Atomfall was a little bit more expensive, coming in at $50. That's how much I paid for it, but as I said in my breakdown video, some people paid $60 for it, so maybe it's a regional or tax thing, but it is still far more worth it than these $80 games. Again, if you're on the fence or you don't know the game yet, check out my video. I'll leave a link in the description and top comment. It's totally spoiler free, so you don't even have to worry about that. But anyway, I'm going to leave this for a future discussion. Let's get back on topic with Tainted Grail. And all of these details were just scratching the surface. Like, there's so much more that just makes me wonder, why did they even bother with adding so much stuff? For example, why can I fish in this game? Why can I chop wood? Why can I mine stone? Like, why are these systems built into this indie game from a small studio? Why is there a layered cooking and alchemy system? You can take a little ingredients for food and make meals for yourself, which I used as healing items or buffs if you happen to make something that is an actual recipe. It pops up and is worth way more. You can get these via recipes as well, like for potions, but I just found it fun to mix ingredients together and seeing if they worked out, and to my surprise it was pretty coherent. I made some soups, some honeyed apples, some chowders, some shit that I don't even know the name of. It's a nice little thing. You just get these individual little elements like garlic, cheese, pork, venison, honey, salt, flour, oats, and you can just cook stuff. And it just leaves me wondering, why is this system in the game? Like, why am I able to make 2 number 9s, a number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soda? Well, actually there's no soda, but you can get mead. Why can I whip out a sketchbook and draw any scenery that I want? Why does this game have such a robust crafting system? Why is every piece of clothing that characters wear an actual item in the world? This is much like Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, where whatever exists in the game world in front of you is actually a physical item. Cups, plates, food, drinks, etc. Anything on top of tables is lootable. Weapons in weapon racks or equipped by enemies are lootable. Clothes, individual pieces of armor, boots, etc. All actual physical items that exist in the world, all lootable. Why is there a whole ass furniture system for the properties that I can buy and live in? Why can I make furniture in this game? Why am I able to make a chair? What the fuck? Why is it in this game? Why can't I even own a house at all to begin with? None of this was present in Avowed. Why is the combat system so rich too? One thing that I immediately noticed, despite the initial clunkiness, is how much more satisfying and deeper the system is than Avowed's. And actually, it's even more robust than what Virtuous and Bethesda did with the Oblivion remake. Robust and responsive, like it feels better to hit enemies in this game than in those games. And I haven't even seen or experienced it all yet because I've seen gameplay videos on YouTube that have gone wild with stuff that I haven't, I have no idea what's even on screen because I haven't even unlocked it yet. Why are all these aspects so damn good? And on top of that, they also went and did this system where at night the game changes up a bit. The world becomes much more dangerous and shrouded in darkness. You can camp anywhere you want to with a bonfire, but you can't sleep through the night unless you add this specific item to the bonfire. If you do that, it creates this veil of protection against the weirdness, which is actually the name of the thing in-game where all of these mysterious monsters and corruption of the land stems from. But otherwise, yeah, things get very spicy at night. There's lots of these weird monsters and specters running around. There's one specifically that creeped the fuck out of me. It was huge, it was in the distance, and it just disappeared. I ran back. I was going somewhere, I saw that, disappeared off the corner of my eye, and I just was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm just gonna go back the way that I came. We can head out in the morning. Normal enemies are a problem too, because at night they can become possessed or some shit and then they become way tougher and hit way harder. So it's just yet another layer where these developers decided to add on to their world via lore and also the gameplay system. It's a running theme with these developers not settling for the minimum, not settling for what would be acceptable for them, not just because they're a small studio, but also because they look around at modern RPGs like Avowed and Veilguard, and it's just a lot of mediocrity. Obviously, games like Baldur's Gate 3 from 2 years ago and Kingdom Come Deliverance from this year are also commendable in this regard, but yeah, these are places with history, whereas this studio is microscopic in comparison. Despite this, these developers, they still push themselves to add more depth and more complexity, and I just find that highly commendable. It's not just systems either, it's also the world. Like, there's so much to see and so much to explore, so many nooks and crannies with caves and temples and entrances to places that you shouldn't be in, ruins, abandoned buildings, etc. There's so much here. It's just that sometimes we play these top studio games and we get this false sense and narrative in our heads that we just take for granted, which is the concept that, oh god, oh no, all these deep and complex systems, they are just not at all possible these days. Like, we can't just do stuff like this anymore. The time and resources necessary are just not viable with how much technology has evolved and how many other gameplay systems, animation, work, directing and filming, etc. is necessary and needs to be prioritized. Blah 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 blah. The making of video games has just become too expensive. Player demands and expectations are just untenable. And of course, all of this is backed up big time by the game's media. What did the media and so many salty ass bigwigs from the AAA industry say when Baldur's Gate 3 came out and everyone was glazing how much content it had and how much variety you could engage with, how much depth there was to the ways to play, the character builds to pursue, the quest outcomes, the mechanics to employ, dialogues to have, interactions with companions, etc.? Well, they told us that it's an impossible type of scenario scenario and gamers should not get used to it. It's just not viable. It's a unique situation. It's not an example to follow. It shouldn't be expected by us players, because if we do expect it, we're just setting up to be disappointed, because in reality, apparently, that was just a miracle. Jesus Christ himself came down from the heavens and made Baldur's Gate 3 happen, because mere mortal developers could never do that. Same shit happened now with Expedition 33. It happened at launch and it's still being pushed today. Just a few days ago I saw another article similar to the one that I saw at launch, where the game's media underplays the success of Expedition 33 by saying, nah, actually, it wasn't just made by 30 developers, they outsourced a lot of work to this studio and that studio or this company or that company or whatever, blah 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 blah, when in reality, that's not really news. If you guys ever sit through credits of any AAA game, you will find these studios that aren't exactly studios, or rather, they are studios, it's just that they're not making games, they're not game studios. They specialize on doing certain things. Maybe it's artistic work, maybe it's animation work, maybe it's physics stuff, maybe it's effects, maybe it's a whole mix of these things. For example, I sat through Veilguard's credits last year, and I remember seeing a studio listed that might have been responsible for how good the hair looked and behaved in the game. These are just studios that exist for big studios to work together with, alleviate their load a bit by outsourcing stuff that these specific studios are very used to doing professionally already. The difference is that Sandfall Games, Expedition 33's developers, are an actually small studio with whom this kind of thing makes sense, and a big ass company like EA, Ubisoft, 2K, Warner Brothers, PlayStation Studios, Xbox Studios, etc. are massive corporations that are often already bloated to hell and back with hundreds and at times even thousands of developers working on a single game. And they're still planning to use these outsourcing studios plus consultants and shit because they barely make anything on their own anymore, and nobody knows what the hell is going on inside these companies. You can't convince me that in companies like Ubisoft, with nearly 20,000 employees, there aren't people in there literally doing nothing and getting paid for it. Like, damn man, if only I could land a job like that, get paid the big corporate bucks and be in charge of making sure that the pens work or some shit. Anyway, let's get back to Tainted Grail again. Sadly, the gaming news media only exists nowadays as a corporate branch for these companies, so this kind of narrative is thrown out there. I might make a full dedicated video on this topic someday, but for now, suffice to say that we are often so, I don't know, kind of indoctrinated into thinking that this level of depth and care is just untenable these days in RPGs in the AAA space. Like, it's just unviable, it can't be done, it's too much work, it's too much this or too much that or too much money or whatever the fuck. And so we just have to accept things the way that they are. If a game comes out and it's an RPG and it's AAA, you know, like Avowed, and it's lacking a lot of depth and mechanics and all this shit, then we just have to accept it. We just have to look at the positives and not focus on the negatives and all of this copium that went on during that game's launch. That's why Oblivion comes along, a remaster of a 2006 game, and it just takes over the internet completely. Loads of people hyped to go back and re-experience it or try it for the first time, despite the bits of censorship that Bethesda worked into the game anyway. It's because in 2025, we hit a situation where Avowed comes out and suddenly it's too much to ask for NPCs to be able to walk, to just walk from point A to point B. And that's not to mention making a living, breathing world where players can actually get immersed and roleplay with the ability to physically interact with NPCs and environments, like for example attacking NPCs, having a crime system, being chased by guards, potentially being thrown into prison for committing a crime, stealing shit from characters, having the world interact with itself, with enemy mobs attacking one another in the wilds for example. A big one was arrows as well, like you couldn't shoot arrows from your bow, they didn't react to anything, like arrows didn't have a physical presence in the world. There's just so much. You couldn't do shit in that game. Again, the damn NPCs wouldn't even move. They wouldn't even talk. They did animations that looked like they were talking, but they just stood in place, silently. So of course it's very understandable that when Oblivion released the remaster, everybody was like, oh my god, thank you. Thank you so much for a game that actually has these bare minimum systems for a first-person RPG, especially one in the AAA space, by Microsoft, the games industry giant. Systems which this studio, in this case Bethesda, way back in the day, 19 years ago had already implemented when the original came out. And Tainted Grail, instead of having that limp-dicked attitude of like, nah, it's enough, who gives a shit? Instead, they have that original attitude, that original drive that Bethesda showed all of these years ago, making a game jam-packed with these details and going out of its way to add even more systems on top of that, despite being indie. Indie! Like I had to deep search these people. Questline, that's the name of it. When I googled it, I found another studio with the same name doing tabletop stuff. Like, these guys just came out of nowhere. I think that this is their first game, in fact. If it's not, if they have another one, I think it's just some kind of card game, but this is their first big project, published by Awaken Realms, which is another pretty obscure publisher. And they're out here actually striving to deliver an RPG with depth. Packed with characters with lives and stories to tell, side quests to do, systems with depth, gorgeous armor, weapon and clothing designs, a great robust magic system, a branching story with choices to make, and even smaller details like the stuff that I mentioned before, and others, like for example the outfits that you wear elicit specific reactions sometimes. During my prison escape, I was looting whatever armor pieces I could get from the guards, and at some point while I was exploring I ran into another escapee, and the guy was very wary of me. He was about to go aggro because I was wearing guard outfits, so he thought that I was a guard. You can convince him that you're just another dude escaping and then everything is fine, but yeah, he actually noticed, and this hasn't been the first time that I had this happen. And in truth, there's probably more lurking underneath, like for example, there's a system where if you steal something in an area, it's marked. So I assume that I cannot sell something that I stole in an area to the merchants of that area. I just haven't given any of these things a try. I haven't tried to get arrested yet either, because I've been playing as a good boy. You know, I've been a nice guy. You know, besides all the stealing and all the killing. But anyway, I'll give those things a try and I'll get back to you guys in a future video. It's just that so far, I'm just playing the game normally, doing my thing, getting sucked into this dark fantasy world, role-playing this badass lost soul with the power of King Arthur sleeping within him, and I'm having a damn good time. 2025 may have had a rough start, but we're definitely eating well, and we still have got a few more goodies to go. Things may not be ideal when it comes to the AAA scene, still a lot of studios making garbage, still a lot of predatory monetization and other disturbing practices, like Xbox and Nintendo coming out with their $80 garbage, but I say, let them dig their own ditches. Nintendo is a lost cause, like it just is what it is. Nintendo fanboys will literally buy anything, they'll spend a whole $80 to play the same shit with vibrant colors if they have to. In that sense, Nintendo has always kind of existed in its own plane of existence. They don't even compete with the main gaming market between PlayStation, the Xbox and the PC. Already with the first Switch, it was outdated when it came out, so it couldn't run PS4 games, and now with the Switch 2, finally it can run PS4 games, but PS5 games are out of the question. So they kinda exist on a whole different plane. But Xbox? That's a whole other can of sardines, man. Doomed Arcades already struggled to get good sales numbers at $70, and now they're setting up the Outer Worlds 2 for $80 later this year? It's just nuts. You just can't justify shit like this at $80 when I can buy Expedition 33 or Tainted Grail for $45 to $50 and Atomfall from $50 to $60. Among other games that I'm really excited to get my hands on and that are being priced far more fairly than this exploitative bullshit. Exploitative bullshit for a sequel to a mid-game whose studio just released an embarrassment earlier this year. This is actually a perfect way to see in action one of the things that I often speak about in my videos. The price you ask for a game isn't just, okay, this is the price, please give me the money. Like, no, son, this is indicative of what I have to expect. When I paid $45 for Tainted Grail and $50 for Atomfall, that was immediately a point of consideration for what to expect within, and what I found was even better than what Xbox had already charged me $70 for back in February, and Ubisoft in March. Now they want to move the needle up to $80? Well shit, they better be presenting me with the next Witcher 3 or Red Dead Redemption 2, because if it falls any bit shorter than that, I'm gonna have a field day roasting the fuck out of these games. But anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to give it a like, and if you're one of the 60% that hasn't subscribed yet, consider doing so. Help me get to 20k to see if I can finally get invited to some streams or some shit. I'll see you boys and girls on the next one. Take care of yourselves and play some good stuff out there.